Hello again, and welcome to the next exciting installment of the Who Cares About Anime podcast. I'm your host, Jonny Lobo, and as usual, I have a fantastic cast of friends and peers in the anime viewing and critiquing world. Today's kind of a special episode. We've got a cast of ragtag YouTubers here, and they were gracious enough to be in the cast today. So we're going to go around and introduce everybody individually. First off, you'll remember him from last time, my right-hand man, Paden.
It's nice that they spend so much time on Saitama on this show when the main character is Moomin Rider.
And here is the crew of Anime-BOM, and we'll have links in the description of this video on YouTube, so you can check out all of their stuff on YouTube and Facebook, and it's hilarious stuff, and I hope to maybe someday be a part of that hilarity, perhaps. But without further ado, here's Kyle.
Hello, I'm just a guy who's a hero for fun.
And joining us also is Caleb.
Easily the best part is the nipples on the lobster, but we'll cover that later.
And also Carson.
No.
I'm sorry, that was my bad. So just Tom
All
next,
good.
right?
It's Tom.
Just Tom.
It's
Okay,
Tom.
I knew Tom was there. I forgot to exclude Carson.
A shame upon you and your house.
We call him just Tom. Anyway, so don't worry about it.
I wasn't even going to have a cool line to open with. I was just going to go, my name's just Tom, that's it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good start.
Okay, perfect. That is. You know what? We're going to keep that. We're going to keep rolling here. Oh, sign of things to come, I am sure. And if you haven't figured out by now, viewers and listeners, the title that we all want to talk a little bit about today is the one and only One Punch Man. For those of you who haven't heard, well, hello, welcome to the internet, and congratulations. May have been living under a rock for a while. I'm just kidding. But it's a extremely popular new title that came out on the end of 2015, and now it's white hot right now, both in Japan and abroad, as we will attest to today. And we all just said, hey, we got to find some time to talk about this title. So, to start things out, let's just go around the table and start out with how did you discover One Punch Man? And, what about it appealed to you enough to make you say, yeah, I want to jump on board with this. I want to see where this is going to go. And we'll start with Paden.
This is probably the one and only time you will ever hear me make this statement. Shoot me if I ever have to say it again, but you know what? What got me into this show were the GIFs and memes that have been inspired by this amazing show. I just kept seeing all this stuff online everywhere, and just this wacky, ridiculous stuff, and pictures of like people cosplaying, and then they like fist bump people, and the other person explodes, and I was just sitting there going, what the hell is wrong with this show? And I have to find out for myself. Then once I started watching it, just the sheer utter ridiculousness of it and the art style, it grabbed me in a very similar vein to the way that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure did, and I just really could not stop watching since. And that's pretty much all it took was one punch, and I was hooked.
I see what you did there. How about you, Kyle?
I initially heard of the show from a podcast I listened to called the Super Best Friend Cast. And one of their cast members was talking about how they were reading this kind of obscure manga. It has this weird thing where this guy punches dudes and he explodes. And I thought it was kind of cool. Added it to my list of I'll check it out one day. What super sold me is, similar to Paden, is I saw a picture online of the panel where that mantis creature comes in, breaks through the roof and goes, "Gah, gah, 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 gah. My name is," and then he just explodes. And I was completely sold after that. And from there, I read the entire manga in pretty much a single go, purged through the entire anime, and I was completely, absolutely hooked. I love this sort of stuff, kind of like Naruto or like JoJo, where it's all about these crazy, insane powers, these really bizarre characters, and every bit of One Punch, I was completely hooked after that. So, whoa, so good, so good.
Fantastic. How about you, Caleb?
So I was living with a roommate who's half Japanese, and a lot of his family's in Japan, and he had been going back and forth once a year. And we would always trade manga, anime, all this different stuff. And he came back one time and he said, you have to check out this manga. And this is way before an anime was even remotely in the works. It was probably maybe 20 chapters in. And he just described it as, it's a guy who defeats every enemy with one punch. And I thought, I'll check it out. It'll probably last 50 chapters and I'll just burn through it. And then, of course, it's such a crazy concept. It's so self-aware and self-indulgent in all of the stupid anime tropes and stereotypes, but also has a lot of heart and also is really about this message of like, what is it to be a hero? What does it mean to, if there is even somebody who can defeat somebody with one punch, you have a responsibility, like with Moomin Rider and all these different characters. So I really got involved with it. And then as soon as the anime was supposedly coming out, I knew from having read all of the manga that it was just going to be amazing and over the top, and they would probably take it as far as they possibly could.
Man, interesting. You really got a first look at it then before a lot of us probably present today. Tom, how about you?
Well, I really don't remember exactly the beginnings. I have to assume it came from a suggestion on one of my casts on Twitch, where a lot of folks would like run down different things they're watching and give suggestions. And I think somebody described it as, well, as the title, as a man that can defeat everything in one punch. And as somebody that doesn't watch anime as much as I feel like I should, I don't really check out too many things, but this really interested me because I was really, I don't know, I was really interested in the concept of somebody that's so powerful nothing can defeat them and nothing's a challenge. Where do they take that concept? And I absolutely love how everything progresses and how every enemy just obliterated in one punch. But this guy shows no concern, nothing. And as Caleb had said, there's so many tropes that I don't actually experience. I only know of them through pop culture and every other person in the world joking about anime and things. So seeing them and seeing how self-aware the show is just so hilarious. I absolutely enjoy the series.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, it is like I've almost thought of it as the novelty of One Punch Man. It's almost like what I would imagine going back in time, what people's reaction to like Superman the first time must have been like, what? He's like bulletproof, he can leap tall bounds? That's so cool. It's just cool. And what particularly drew me to One Punch Man, not being familiar with the manga before the anime, like Paden and others have mentioned, I was seeing it on the internet. I was seeing things pop up, and I was kind of like, okay, what is this? And in particular, I saw somebody posted the clip of Genos and Saitama having that little scrap where Genos is like, okay, don't hold back. I really want to test myself. And I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes. And I was just flabbergasted. I was like, wow, that was one of the coolest, fast-paced, really well-animated fight sequences I've ever seen in anime lately. And yet, you look at Saitama first go, and as I think the author intentionally did, he doesn't quote unquote look like a badass superhero right off the bat. So, but what really got me hooked was I had two really good buddies recommend it. One, he's an avid anime viewer as well, and said, "Dude, like it's awesome. Check it out." And that had a lot of weight for me. I said, "Okay, I do got to check this out." But what really sold me was simultaneously a mutual friend of ours who quote unquote hates all things anime. It's kind of an inside joke with us, but he really isn't. He just really isn't a patron of anime or manga in particular. But somehow my other friend talked him into watching it, and he loved it. He loved it because of it was just badass, and because of the way it kind of skewers a lot of tropes in manga and anime. So that was my introduction. Moving on from there, talking a little bit more about it, I specifically wanted to reference, especially because the man himself is here with us. I was checking out thepulppress.com, and I saw Caleb writing about the manga. And when you hear about the premise of it, you don't even have to be much of a writer or something to where how we've been conditioned, storytelling 101, if you will, really, a character that has seems to have no flaws and no weaknesses and is never really challenged or confronted all that much. It really, quote unquote, it shouldn't work, and yet here we are talking about it. And I'd say both in sales and just pop culture, it's definitely quote unquote worked. Something's worked. So why do you think that is? And we'll start with Paden.
Well, I would say that honestly, the answer to that, for my perspective, it would be twofold. One of the things would be that yes, he doesn't have to struggle, quote unquote. He doesn't have a struggle to deal with, which is like an integral part of any character's development. But I would argue that he actually does. His struggle is the fact that he never has to struggle, which leads to a life of just supreme boredom and apathy to the point at which all he really wants, all he really cares about is having that one person to finally give him a challenge, to finally have something to struggle against. That's like what it means to be a hero, is overcoming the odds. I mean, people like Genos, even though they're like top rank hero, stereotypical shonen anime type, and in Genos' case, Iron Man meets G Gundam meets NSYNC. But the thing is, like, the characters all have something to fight against, and they have something to strive for and something to overcome that really makes them who they are. What does Saitama have? He really doesn't have anything, and that's all he wants, is to be a hero. And how can one be a hero if one never really has to struggle to be a hero? In addition to that, as far as outside of the anime itself, outside of the writing, which honestly is a brilliant parody of all manime of all time, but also a brilliant ode to it. I've talked about this with John before, and I this is not to hate on. I'm not going to give my hate on to like moe fans or anything like that. That's great. Whatever kind of anime you like, slice of life moe, that's great. But we have been so incredibly oversaturated with slice of life comedies and romantic moes and creepy lolly culture. No offense to lolly fans out there, but there's so much of it. There is so much of it that to have something of the extremity of One Punch Man, or as our previous podcast discussed, JoJo's, to have something of this like extreme level of high octane testosterone and very edgy artwork, when things like this come along, it's not only a brilliant return to, like, say, fans of the 90s, like that's all we had was manime pretty much. That was the genre, and it's kind of come full circle, but there's something of a self-awareness that has come with that. And it has made for a genre that not only keeps to the tropes that we knew and loved growing up as kids, but it really makes beautiful commentary on it that only those who have truly come to appreciate the genre can understand. And I think One Punch Man does this probably better than any other series I've seen come out in years.
Huh. Interesting take on that. Yeah. Kyle, what do you think?
Oh man, my answer's going to sound much less eloquent than what was just said. Much like the natural comparison is of the standard Superman ideas. How can you theoretically have a character that's so awesome just come in, wreck the main villain, and yet have a show with tension or a decent story or anything that can actually really engage people? Like, I love Dragon Ball to death, but even after a while, you kind of eventually figure out the whole, oh no, here's the villain, here are the characters that kind of slightly overcome the villain, and the villain becomes really powerful, and then don't worry, Goku's there. Don't worry, he did it. How did Goku stop him? He was just Goku, he did it. And so the idea of One Punch Man in itself is like, you kind of initially roll your eyes at it of like, oh, that's kind of weird. How do they possibly pull it off? And as it's said many times before, the fact that it's kind of a parody of old, like, constant tropes or ideas behind anime is what kind of makes it so appealing. Also, I find the world itself to be extremely fascinating. When initially I got into the whole show, I had no clue about like the whole hero society, the different ranks of threats. All of that was brand new to me, completely fascinating. And even the whole Power Ranger style of here is the villain of the week show up. It's a giant clan of sky monsters. Like, there is something weirdly fascinating and very entertaining about that. And personally, I get struck with like a weird childlike wonder of like, whoa, that's a tentacle monster. Oh no, they're invading. That's their king, their sea god. Oh no, how are they gonna beat him? And then where One Punch Man starts to throw its own little weird curve to it, Saitama rolls in, stops it. And in a weird, bizarre way, it's like a recurring joke with the most straightforward punchline, no pun intended, that it's, for some reason, it's so straightforward that it catches people off guard constantly in a weird way. I'm not sure if anyone else felt the same way, but near the end of the show or middle of the show, when they fought the Sea God, it had this weird moment of like, oh my god, he's so strong. How is he going to possibly defeat it? Is this going to truly be like, is that going to be his struggle? And then it ends in 5 seconds. And I was sitting there, I'm like, oh, I actually don't really know what I really expected out of that. And in a bizarre way, because it's so straightforward. It's kind of interesting to me personally of a weird, stupid joke of Saitama as a whole. But yeah, I think what it boils down to is how good the world is as a whole. It's just so entertaining with all the different creatures, monsters, hero abilities. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a whole nother there's the backdrop of it that gets lost in the shuffle a lot, I think. But there's quite a bit more to that, and yeah, thank you very much, Caleb. What do you think?
So my background is in writing fiction and screenwriting and a couple of different narrative forms. And one of the things that One Punch Man does, because as kind of Tom and everybody else has alluded to, this totally breaks that narrative framework of character arc as far as strength is concerned, and typically strength is then like a metaphor for a character flaw or something else. In this case, the strength is out of the way, and a lot of it is about the character flaw in Saitama and his boredom and his quest to overcome something in his life. And he's trying to figure that out. So part of that, I think, why this show works is the mystery of his strength, and you're trying to discover, okay, what actually was it? And they haven't gotten there in the rebooted manga, but they kind of touch on that a little bit in the actual original One one. Anyway, I think the show works because you have all of these side characters that do have a little arc, like Genos, Moomin Rider, all these smaller side heroes that kind of come and play their role, and then Saitama pulls a Goku, as Kyle's talking about, and he flies in and he saves the day. The one thing that I think really helps this series in a very strange way is there are these narrative structures that we're all super familiar with, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, a stage play. There's this idea that you introduce the characters within a third of the story starting. You're supposed to have it so that the main conflict of the story is introduced. And then you go through different challenges, setbacks. At the 2/3, 3/4 mark, you have the dark moment of the soul, where the hero characters ensure if they can make it, they find something, climax, denouement, story's out. This is obviously written by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. It's drawn by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. So the structure is totally gone from what you would normally expect. So people come in and where you would normally think like, okay, I'm going to have this happen, and then they're going to reach their second form, and then there's going to be a long battle, and then Goku is going to show up in ghost form while Gohan only has one arm that he can use, and Kamehameha's with one arm, and then we're done. But that never happens in One Punch Man. It's this constant, in comedy, this idea that you're going down this road, and then there's a sharp right that you just didn't expect to happen. So in the case of what's the name of the stag beetle?
Oh shoot, what's that?
Anyway, while Kyle looks it up on his phone, in that whole fight where we hit the second form, and then you're expecting this super long battle to play out, and then it's done in 2 seconds. The other thing too that's really interesting about the show that I've noticed is that all of the typically what happens is you have the drama front loaded in the episode, get the boring stuff out of the way while people are still interested, and you end it with the action. Later on in the series, all of the episodes start with the action, like in the case of the of Saitama fighting the Sea King, and that battle is done. Well, it's Genos and then Saitama, and then the rest of the episode is the fallout of the Sea King and him talking with Moomin Rider, who kind of came in to save things, and all of the tank top guys blaming Saitama for all of that happening. So there's this really interesting switch up of narrative flow and function, and it just makes it so you really have no framework to expect anything that's going to come. It just kind of happens at you as the series goes on.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, probably I guess a breath of fresh air to many viewers, I suppose, who have. We're certainly in a day and age where we're now inundated with storytelling. There's no shortage of it. So that's very interesting. Tom, why do you think One Punch Man works?
Um, I don't know if I can top what Caleb said over there, but coming from somebody whose opinion is derived from somewhere where I don't watch much anime, I absolutely love the premise of somebody being so strong that the conflict of the show isn't whether or not Saitama can defeat an enemy. It's more, in my mind, how he can fit into this weird dystopian society where heroes are everywhere. There's different ranks of heroes, and there's a lot of points where Saitama will come up, destroy a monster, and then he has this moral quandary. Do I say I defeated it in one punch? This guy's saying all the other heroes didn't even weaken him. What are they doing? Like it's such a weird display of this world, and you're not, at least myself, I'm not really waiting to see who gets destroyed and how. I'm really waiting to see how each character reacts to each situation, having this weird godlike person that has no care for anything, really. It's just absolutely absurd. I absolutely love that. And with that, the animation behind these fights, and as Caleb was saying, they're all drawn out in the span of like 2 seconds, but the animation behind those 2 seconds can last maybe 20, 30, like the slowed time, animation styles change. I absolutely eat up the fact that Saitama just has this blank, basically smiley face for the entirety of the show. But as soon as a combat starts, or he's winding up just one punch with a stupid name, his face entirely changes to this like very stereotypical angled eyes and angry face, and it's just like, whoa, he is serious now. He's gonna punch that guy
Consecutively, normally.
Yeah, exactly. So I really don't have much of a background in anime, but I just love the Superman destroying the world and trying to live day by day and blending into this weird society where nobody really accepts him, even though he could defeat anyone and anything in any chance or any variable. I don't know. He still doesn't care. He's so apathetic to every situation, and he doesn't care. I mean, he cares about a few key things, which really keeps me invested in him. But as Caleb was saying, there's a lot of other arcs with other characters, which are always just like little side tidbits to get interested in. So, yeah, I think that's the series' strengths in my mind.
Quick thing, I just have to say, just hearing Caleb and then hearing you, Tom, I think one of the joys of this anime is the fact that it draws in people who are longtime anime fans and people who really have no experience. It really crosses that boundary, and I think having a background in like fantasy writing, I think the problem with any genre, fantasy, anime, whatever, is eventually the formula, like Caleb was talking about, the different patterns of it, it gets tired, and you have to freshen it up, and I think that's exactly what this does. And I think whether or not if you know the genre, you will appreciate the fresh take on it. If you don't know the genre, you'll be astounded by how different it is than anything you've seen.
Just while we're on the topic, so being like, I'm assuming most of us are like really seasoned, and of course Tom being different. So what I want to ask Tom is, like, do you like know the tropes are going by?
That's one of the best things, because I actually have a story to lead into this. We're all kind of connecting these points. The tropes of anime seem so strewn about through pop culture and through different mediums that I can pick up on all these tropes and just kind of chuckle along and go, haha, classic anime. I don't know a thing about it, but that's probably what anime is. Ha ha ha. That kind of stuff is, I don't know if it plays directly to me, and as Paden was saying, plays to seasoned veterans of this type of medium, but it definitely does let in people with this. It's got a very low barrier of entry for anyone who wants to enjoy. And this is where my story takes place. I was out for brunch with my family, just dad, mom, sister. We're all sitting around eating brunch. And out of the blue, my dad just says, so is anyone watching like One Punch Man? I'm like, excuse? Like, and my sister chimes in, and my sister's big into anime, so I wasn't so surprised about that. But it was the fact that my dad was just like, yeah, I'm watching this too. I'm like, are you kidding me? What do you got? Okay, and we had this whole brunch discussion, and my mom is just looking at us like, yeah, you guys keep talking. I'm gonna eat this breakfast here. It was so surreal, because anime for me is it's a realm of its own that I kind of look into every so often for really. I don't even know. I probably have like three shows behind me, like Evangelion, Attack on Titan, and two things I probably can't name off the top of my head because the titles are long. But it's the thought that my dad, who I don't know to watch anime at all, is just like so avid about this. It just blew my mind.
That is hilarious. So thank you for sharing that. And so now I know that there's got to be something to that because as I mentioned before, like my good buddy from high school and college who is just like that anime stuff, and because of the internet, absolutely like you said, Tom kind of knows. Yeah, I get it. It's anime, classic anime, or whatever it is, and so when he watched it, I was so surprised. I'm like you tolerated it, you liked it. He's like, dude, I loved it. Like he was like that they were skewering all this, this anime cliches that even I'm aware of, and so I think we kind of hit on in a weird way. Why does One Punch Man work? There's a lot of different reasons, and I mean, it would take probably a whole cast to respond to all of your guys' things individually properly, because I think those are all really good takes and valid takeaways from it. And like Paden saying, I for one thought that as well. It's one of those things where like for the last decade and however long and some change, it's been very inundated with kind of your slice of life kind of moe stuff. And when something comes along that's not that, it's kind of like if you were eating cheeseburgers for every day for a month, and then all of a sudden you get pizza. All of a sudden, like pizza's the greatest thing in the world now because you're like, I just need something to mix it up. And so when they throw something really masculine and quote unquote manime down the pike, that helps shake that up. And like you were saying, Kyle, with Power Rangers, I think there's definitely a lot of well-placed nostalgia for a lot of people with your Super Sentai vibe. Heck, Moomin Rider. Tell me that's not a common Rider nod. A little tip of the hat. Try to convince me otherwise. And for all the other reasons listed, something I was kind of trying to postulate myself was, and I included this in a forthcoming review I did for The Devil is a Part-Timer, and that's another funny thing Tom touched on. Like, I remember when anime it was like, boom, here's the title, and nowadays we get a lot of stuff like, no matter how I look at it, it's your guys' fault that I'm not popular, and also da-da-da-da, and it's like the titles are like a paragraph long, it seems sometimes. But anyway, the thing I got from like similar vibes from shows like that, some that have been coming down the pike and more recently, and what I got from One Punch Man was it's kind of and this is just my subjective ideas on it. Being a millennial, I think it really speaks to millennials because a lot of us raised on a good old diet of 90s shonen anime and other things like it. You fight the good fight, you keep getting better and better and self-improving, and then a lot of us kind of, maybe those of us who went into college or university or tech school or something, and then you get out of that and it's like poof, like we were in an economic time where it's like there was just a cliff that you fell off there for a while. It's like, oh my God, where are the jobs? And all of a sudden after all that, you're working kind of like I couldn't be a hero, so I got a job instead. I think that's the title. Really, another really long ass title where the guy sets off to be a hero. It ends up the villain gets defeated before he even gets to the villain, and so the guy's just working in a department store. And it's like, well, I guess that's life. So a lot of us having that feeling of we have potential, but where's the recognition for it? I think a lot of us can identify with Saitama in that way, in that he did it for the right reasons. He wants to be a hero, partly for fun, partly to help people, and it's like has been mentioned, it's really not a question after a few episodes. It's not even a question anymore of can he do it? Absolutely, he's going to take this guy out, but it's just kind of that feeling of not getting proper recognition from like the heroes institution or guild. I can't remember what it's so not getting due credit from an establishment, or not getting feeling underappreciated from the general public or your peers. I think that was a really unanticipatedly, I certainly wasn't anticipating it going in, a really poignant point that the series had on me, and I suspect maybe not even consciously aware of it, but I think probably had on a lot of viewers out there today, and this generation. Moving on from there, kind of, we had this first season as we're recording this right now, 12 episodes, and the internet's pretty much hooked on it, and it was great. So can kind of go into perhaps the manga a little bit if people want to, like Caleb, more versed in that, and also kind of the anime, but just kind of getting into what you were saying, Caleb, with okay, this is how character development works, and okay, you've got to have these struggles, you've got to have these rituals that your protagonist or whatever goes through, etc. Where do you think One Punch Man will go from here, plot wise and kind of character development wise? I mean, do you think we're gonna get a hero that really physically challenges Saitama, or do you think it's gonna continue on that maybe that'll be the struggle, as has been mentioned, like villain after villain after villain, Saitama can't find a challenge, and maybe I almost saw in Boros kind of an alternate version of Saitama there. If you have somebody who's has like ultimate power, quote unquote, and gets bored, has no challenge, so he goes out and conquers the galaxy because he's bored. Where do you think they're going to go from here? Where would you like them to go from here? And we'll start with Paden.
My ultimate goal for this, my ultimate dream, would be for Saitama to just eventually get so bored that he just punches the universe and the universe can't punch back and everything just goes to hell. But as far as where I think they're going, I think I think they could indefinitely continue it on with the same shtick. And I think it will always take one punch, but like I can't remember whether it was with you, John, or with someone else the other day I was discussing this. I think one thing that would be just very interesting is for it to turn out that someone else does the exact same training regimen as Saitama does: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 crunches, 10 kilometers running every single day, doesn't turn on the AC during the summer, doesn't turn on the heat during the winter, etc., does that same thing and comes and challenges him, and they both punch each other and they both explode, and he finally has his struggle, but it just ends in one punch. That even then, it's just like there's simultaneously keep with a shtick, but also he finally has his struggle, and he finally knows what it's like to face someone that's just as strong as he is, and he doesn't really have time to appreciate it. And I think that would be just a beautifully tragic ending to a really mediocre existence for him. And regardless of where they take it, I think they have the thematic system set up in such a way that the show will continue to be entertaining and continue to be just a completely hilarious romp through anime, no matter which direction they go. So as far as hopes, I could see a lot of things happening. As far as what I think they'll do, I think they'll take it to the direction everyone's thinking they'll take it, and then, as was mentioned before, take a sharp right and leave all of us hanging.
Kyle, what do you think?
It's always a tough thing to think about because, as Caleb and Paden has mentioned, part of the appeal of One Punch is how just abrupt, sharp turns just occur at any moment. So it's kind of hard to say where the whole series can go as a whole. Because correct me if I'm wrong. Aside from Genos and trying to find the person who like destroyed his family, and Saitama, who's looking for someone who can match him in strength, there's no actual overarching story to One Punch Man. It's just kind of their day-to-day lives. So it's kind of weird to describe because it's not like I'm hooked on the story of it, so to say. Like there's no overarching like, oh no, there's this threat that's imminent kind of thing, and this thing could happen soon. It's more of like I'm kind of along for the ride. So in a weird way, it's kind of hard to predict where it goes. In terms of Saitama, I'm worried that the whole series is gonna start. That joke is gonna kind of run dry after a while. Of oh no, he can destroy things in one punch. And I don't know how much longevity that sort of kind of shtick has. So I'm hoping they sort of start to develop it. My biggest hope is that series ends with him finding someone that withstands the strongest punch he can, and then his vigor for fighting comes back. He gets really pumped. He throws his second punch and destroys the guy with the second punch, and he becomes the 2-punch man. That's my biggest hope in the world is how that series ends. But otherwise, yeah, it's really tough but because of how predictable or unpredictable rather the show is, I kind of weirdly looking forward to just where it just goes.
Caleb, how about you?
So I've read up to everything in the original manga, so I know about the next 2 seasons if they actually get made, and I don't want to ruin it for everybody. Paden, to kind of like touch on your point that you made, there is actually a villain that comes up that is somewhat to something of an equivalent to Saitama. He doesn't go through the same training, but they build him up as this is a dark side Saitama. That is going to be a very, very interesting arc. However, I had a friend that I was talking to that I introduced the story to, and he was super into it because of all the ways that it broke normal anime. However, the series does start to kind of get into a little bit of the Goku thing, actually, where it is like you're focused entirely on these side characters, and then Saitama comes in and saves the day. And what I'm hoping through the anime that I think the anime has been really good for highlighting the character development and actually putting in a lot of time with like with after the Seeking episode or at the end of it when Saitama sits down with Moomin Rider, pulling out more of that character development, pulling out more of that normal everyday tension of just people talking to other people, not necessarily displaying it in strength, and making it so that it is more about relatable life and kind of boredom and trying to achieve something, but not really sure, being sure what the challenge is, being weak in a really strange way. So taking it more in a character direction than necessarily just a straight up physical, because we've done that already. You're not going to do anything higher than the Boros fight. It's like strength on strength. Okay, we're done there. We need to find a different avenue to go down to keep things fresh and interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I too wonder, like, how do you top the Boros fight in terms of just power on power? So, absolutely. Tom, what are some of your thoughts?
Again, bringing it back to that Boros fight, I don't know. It's kind of crazy because once you get to the Boros fight, it really feels like every avenue of trying to get stronger, trying to find something stronger than One Punch Man to defeat is not going to happen. I think that's a dead end in my opinion. Like we'll never see something to match him ever again. In my mind, that's how I see the series going, because having this creature traveling billions of years, destroying planets, trying to do what Saitama's doing, but with this world domination angle, it was beautiful in the way that, you know, this is the darker side of what Saitama could have been, and then you have this fight, he win, spoilers, sorry, and and it just really solidifies that that's it. That's the end. As far as I know, that's where that's going to end, strength-wise. But with the later episodes, you can really see that they're playing up character development. As Caleb said, most of the time spent in the show is with other characters and with their own fights of strength and whatnot. And again, as Caleb said, I'm just going to be a Caleb clone. I don't watch Dragon Ball Z, but he mentioned Goku as somebody that comes in at the end of an episode and just destroys. I could definitely see that happening for the rest of the series as you follow along with all of the side characters, see their interactions within the Guild of Heroes, or the name for that, and just I really do lead this back to the social interactions between people rather than the fights that Saitama will have in the future. And I think that's going to be the strength of the series moving forwards. But I love the fact that with the end of this series, or season, sorry, they really haven't at all slowed down, especially with the fights. The fights go stronger, 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 and at the end of the season, it plateaus. That's the end. As far as I can tell, that is as strong as an enemy is ever going to get. And that makes me think that this next season is going to go in an entirely different direction. And that's what's got me strong and just excited to see what happens next.
Okay, but maybe what's going to happen is we're going to have this expectation of it has to change. And because it's going to do this like reverse psychology thing, and every fight is just going to end with Saitama just one punching and then making hard eye contact with the audience. Like, this is what you're in for. This is your life now.
This is it.
I think the ending of the series is going to be him looking at the screen and punching the screen, and your TV shatters, and that's the end.
That would be so awesome. Ah!
Oh man, there you go, Peyton. If they're If I'm sure they are, lol. But no, if they're listening, there you go. That's have everyone's TV sets explode. That would be the ultimate ending. But uh, no, I think that is part of the fun is with this one. It is going to be really tough and to predict, and I like that. I think most viewers do in their heart of hearts. You like that. You don't want to know exactly what's going to happen. And if it's doing, reverse psychology, or maybe they'll know that we're thinking they'll do reverse psychology, so they really won't. And it's just going to be a box of mystery, if you will. I don't know where I got that turn of phrase from, but now I do think though they could stick with the shtick indefinitely, and it'd be entertaining, and it could be internet fodder forever, pretty much. But I think now that the novelty of it has worn off a little bit, since now everybody, the first 12 episodes, it's what's this thing called One Punch Man? Why is he bald? Is it really just with one punch and that kind of thing? So now that people are hooked on board, I do think you're going to have development in some way, and I think it's just going to be interesting to see whether are they going to try in fighting in a battle in a physical sense, and just kind of go the Gurren Lagann route where like let's just be absurd to the farthest end of the spectrum as possible. Like, by the end, talking about spoiler alerts here, that's where Gurren Lagann kind of takes it. Like, maybe One Punch Man is going to be having galaxies thrown at him. I mean, you could do that with One Punch Man. On the other hand, I do kind of like the idea of the Boros fight. That was kind of it. It all culminated to that, and from there, I think everybody will kind of agree you do have interesting characters in this one. Saitama's the main character, the Goku-esque character, absolutely, but he and everyone else is really interesting, and it's this weird. It's funny. I was just thinking this in my mind how we were talking about and comparing manime versus slice of life, and now we kind of have something kind of come full circle where I believe it was you, Kyle, who said, and others have commented on it as well, the lack of the apparent story arc. And it just kind of is this day to day, like, oh, what's going to happen today? Saitama's going to go to the store and buy some vegetables, and is he going to run into a monster on the way? Who knows? But let's stick around and find out. So, in short, I guess I too have no idea, listeners and viewers, and I don't think anybody really does, but on where it's going to go, and I think that's precisely the point. I think that's going to be the fun, and as long as I do want to see some development. I want to see character struggle and stuff, but as long as they keep that theme of fun and awesome that they absolutely nailed right off the bat with these first 12 episodes, then I'm sold. I'm on board. Show me more. Well, gentlemen, I think as we're seeking to wrap up here today, I think that was the only episode ever, Paden. We forgot to say spoiler warning in the beginning, so we'll have to put that in the description somewhere.
Oh no! No.
Heaven forbid.
How will they ever survive?
I don't
Guys,
know.
Spoiler, spoiler.
So we'll
There's a spoiler.
One punch.
heaven forbid if if you come into our stuff, we're going to be talking about
I
the
feel
show.
like this
So
but I feel like out of all the shows we've done, this one, what you're gonna see is in the title of the show. So if you are coming into this saying One Punch Man, I wonder if he kills them with 100 punches. I have some bad news.
he's not a 100 punch man for Pete's sake, but no. So let's just and of course we can open it up to just some general discussion if people have time at the end here. But just kind of on that spirit of just fun, I figured we'd kind of end it with people going around. And as is tradition, kind of at this point, we'll start with you, Paden, and let's just go around. Who's your favorite character, and why is it Moomin Rider?
Well, I mean, Moomin Rider is Moomin Rider, and the Cyclist for Justice. You cannot hate on that. But no, I have to say, okay. So I'm gonna be that guy, and I'm gonna say I have a three-way tie, and it's just for the levels of sheer ridiculousness. Of course, Saitama's got to be in there, but I'm just not even gonna count that because everybody loves Saitama. So if I were to name three other than Saitama, I would say Moomin Rider, of course. Pooty Pooty Prisoner has to be in there just for the moment that guy got on the scene. I'm like, this can't be a hero. this is horrifying. This is the guy that you do not want to be in a cell with in prison. This is horrifying. But and especially the fact that he fights naked for his ultimate moves. Although I have to admit, if that's your villain, if Pooty Pooty Prisoner ends up being your supervillain, I think you're doing okay. It's at least entertaining to watch the whole way through. But the other one that I like is Speed of Sound of Sonic, which I feel like he, in a lot of ways, to me, is the polar opposite of what Saitama is. Like, Saitama is, this, like, complete, mellow, like, whatever kind of guy that he just does what he does for fun, and that's it. Like, he's not challenged. He doesn't look like he should be tough, but he is. He hits Sonic, and he's drawn like every like anime anti-hero that should be this badass rival to the main character. He's got all these really cool abilities. And who does he beat in this whole setup? He beats one person, and that is a at best 2-bit thug in a suit whose superpowers, he has an extra hard head. I mean, seriously, this guy, he has everything, every cool ridiculous power, every super cool, nonchalant, tough guy, cool guy kind of line. And yet he can't win anything. He just sucks. He shows up late to the party every time. And by the time he gets there, Saitama's already taken care of it. Or when he goes up against the Sea King, he's just like, oh yeah, I'm super powerful when you're like at your weakest. And then as soon as you get any kind of strength, he's just this pathetic piece of crap. And it's just... It just makes for a very entertaining time, especially because I'll admit my guilty pleasure is like the badass, calm and collected rival type anti-hero, and this guy just wonderfully fails at that in every conceivable notion.
Now, tell me how you really feel, Paden. No, thank you.
Well, if you want to know my true feelings, John, you should just come over here and find them out for yourself.
Well, now that you've said you like
Pooty
Prisoner, I might have to think twice about that. So, moving on. No, Kyle, how about you? Favorite character or characters?
My favorite is Moomin Rider because he's really cool. He rides a bicycle and he's got a heart.
Boo! Your choice.
For real though, I do love Moomin Rider. I don't typically fall for the sort of like the part where you like sympathize with the hero of like, oh no, can they win? I almost never fall for that. But during the Sea King arc, I was like borderline tears, and he's like, oh, I know I can't win. Me of all people, I know that. And I was sitting there on the edge of my chair, like, you can do it, buddy. I believe in you. So the fact that he's so effective to me, who has like an impenetrable heart of isolation, is so good. I love that guy. But just so this doesn't turn into a Moomin Rider podcast, I'm going to say my second favorite character, who shows up more in the manga, is Metal Bat. Because that guy is a badass. And the shit that he does later on is phenomenal. He's just this typical punk, which, as far as I know, he doesn't really have a power other than he's really strong and has a metal baseball bat. He likes his sister a lot, and he's just really strong. That's all I got. He's just awesome. That guy's a badass. I love that guy.
Man, how could I almost forget? I remember being like, so that's your thing? You have a bat? That's your thing? And I was like, yep, that's his thing. Hey, some people punching's their thing. Some people using baseball bats is their thing. Absolutely. Caleb, how about you?
So just to make a note, Kyle typically favors characters that really love their sisters. It's been a running thing in our group. We keep meaning to talk to him about it.
I can't help it if their sisters are so attractive, okay? Please edit all of this out.
All of it. Just take all. Okay. No, leave it in. I'll leave it
Get
in.
the past out.
Not a single iota of this is getting edited out. Every bit of it has to be there. Every juicy sister loving morsel.
Just anybody send me if you want some edited out. Send it to me. But anyway, proceed.
No, this is all stink. I think my favorite would have to be a snake bite guy in the snake suit. No, nobody likes him. I'm totally joking. Nobody cares about him at all. Genos definitely has to be the favorite. As far as like he's the only character with arc, the mystery surrounding his whole thing and what Metal Knight means to him. Also, he's not funny in the manga. He's so funny in the anime. Like in his background explanation scene where he starts talking faster and faster, and the way they play off that is so brilliant. Also, look at him, hot cyborg dude. You can't get over that. Kyle's fanning himself furiously right now.
If he was my sister, believe me.
Okay, but like Kyle, I'm gonna draw attention to a character that hasn't even been in the anime yet, that's in the manga, and it is Tatsumaki's sister Fubuki, or Blizzard, as she's known. Let me just say high fiving Kyle right now, taking a second. Anyway,
Woo,
back to
sisters.
more sisters. God, son of a bitch, Kyle. So I am not a waifu guy. I don't have a body pillow. I don't really go out for that. These aren't real people. Fubuki is my waifu. She's you people that watch the anime, you don't understand what you're missing out on. The second season's gonna be phenomenal. And just Google image One Punch Man Blizzard and you'll get an idea. Like that is those are some art assets, I will tell you.
I was once like you. I thought anime girls were weird. However, I'll send you some emails with PDFs later.
Oh no.
It'll change.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
I think we need all of these for science.
So there's one called One Hurricane. It's
Oh.
pretty good.
Sister Hurricane, Doki Doki something.
I'm sorry, we're bringing this podcast down to like a much lower level of quality. This is the quality we're used to here at Anime-BOM, and I'm sorry.
We don't want to give the impression that it's like we're watching something online and it's like, oh, I like the character art of this character. That doesn't happen. That's not Anime-BOM.
So true.
Yeah. Okay, Tom, what's your stupid character?
Moving Rider. I'm so angry at myself. Everyone's read the manga, and I don't have any cool new characters where everyone's gonna be like, oh, you know what? I have a new respect for that character. That's a really interesting one, Tom. Good choice. No, it's fucking Moomin Rider. I don't have anything cool. I'm not a cool guy. The backup is Genos, because they're both underdog characters, and Genos is such a stereotypical anime protagonist in my eyes, and him just getting destroyed by Saitama, like, no, shut up, your backstory's too long, I don't want to hear it anymore. That stuff just cracks me up. And Moomin Rider's the opposite. He's not the stereotypical underdog protagonist that gets crapped on for being so stereotypical. He's just, like, full of heart, he's emotional, and it's just like, oh, you can't really do anything, buddy, but I believe in you. That's it. I'm lame.
When he threw the bike at Sea King,
Oh, yeah.
it's like that's like his special move.
That's it.
That's his
Justice
whole-
toss!
I'm also a fan of Justice Tackle, where he gently embraces the sinking.
Oh, this might be the most fun we have ever had on a Who Cares cast. So, thank you already, gentlemen. I mean that for me, I'm with you. I'm with you there, Tom, and I'm with probably a lot of listeners there. Like, I love Moomin Rider. I mean, he's the heart of this show. I mean, he really is, and I really like Genos as a character. As Caleb said, he's got actual. There's something enigmatic about him and his backstory, and seeing him struggle and want to be a hero for the right reasons, and all this good stuff. I really like Genos. He's cool. But Moomin Rider, I mean, for those of you who are still here and just haven't seen it, but have seen all the Moomin Rider love that is strewn about the internet, I mean, you gotta watch it for yourself and find out, because I think, as was also been said, I like an underdog character, and he goes into that fighting the Sea King. I think I was with everybody, and I think they knew that all of the audience or the readers would kind of be when all of the citizens start cheering for him. Even though you throw as with so many other times in this series, you throw logic out the window, and you just think, you know what, maybe Moomin Rider will find a way. Get a Moomin Rider, and you're cheering him on. But the real reason I like him is for he hit all the heart, and knowing, hey, maybe I can't beat you. In fact, I probably can't beat you. In fact, I know I can't beat you. but we will meet them in battle nonetheless. Like that was such a cool moment, and just the fact that he's, when I heard about when if you're C class, you have to have a quota of doing things to maintain that, and so the fact that he's top of C class, he's beloved by all of the citizens, he's just some guy riding around on a bicycle and getting kittens out of trees, or getting a balloon for a kid, or you just know in the back of your mind he's just this good guy that just goes around doing good deeds. And it's like, I don't even know, he's not the hero we need, but he's the one we deserve, or something like that. I don't know. So absolutely, I'm gonna go Moomin Rider all the way. And as was said, this was great. This was so much fun, and thank you all, gentlemen, for being here today. If anybody has any closing remarks, or any other last points of discussion, or anything else they wanna throw in here at the end?
We just, from Anime-BOM, we want to say a consecutive normal thank you to everybody at Do You Know Anime?
Yeah, good old fashioned civil. Thank you very much.
Oh, I thank you. Sorry, I I thought everyone was speaking for me.
I said normal. I said normal. Thank you.
I'm bad at
Hey, he said consecutive normal. So yeah, I mean, you guys got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like the end of a soccer game. We're all kind of high-fiving each other. Good game.
Good cast. Good cast.
Butt slap at the end for the more comfortable.
Yeah, way to show some hustle out there. Yeah. Oh yeah, good game.
I like watching you walk away. I mean, good game.
Thankfully, you're not in the same room with anyone, Paden. Whoops, that was supposed to stay in my head, not say out loud. What am I thinking?
What are you talking about? Oh, goodness.
And again, viewers on YouTube and listeners on iTunes, thank you again so much from me and us at Who Cares About Anime as well. And we hope you'll subscribe here or check us out on iTunes, Facebook, Twitter. We're going to try to keep the good times going like this, with bringing in familiar voices and hopefully new friends and peers, as we have done today, and keep the good times rolling. And absolutely check out the description of this video. We're going to have links to Anime-BOM, the anime box of mystery, and so you can hear more of Kyle and Caleb and Tom and others. Just you'll be laughing your pants off, guaranteed. So check them out.
And if you've got any animes you'd like us to cover, make sure and leave us a note in the comments. We'd love to hear back from the fans what all they'd like to hear.
Absolutely. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today, and thank you listeners, and we'll catch you next time.